learned to make their own devices alongside of actors who were dressed up as Marvel comic book characters. So in this slide, you can see some of the kids with Captain America dressed up as Thor, their favorite superheroes, and really enjoying the fact that they were able to help create their own device. From the very beginning, our hope was that by sharing the designs open source, we would allow families to create these with their children, because we noticed from the very beginning that the differently abled who were able to be a participant somehow in the making or assembly of their devices tended to use them more than those who were just gifted them from a stranger or an e-NABLE volunteer. When they participated in building it themselves, they not only had pride in making something that they were going to wear, but they discovered they had skills that they didn't know they had, whether they didn't know they could tie a knot with only 5 fingers, or hold different tools. It was very rewarding and very eye-opening for us as a community to be able to see the ways in which these recipients were eager to participate in their own hand designs. One of my favorite limb different e-NABLE family members is Luke, and you can find him on Facebook under Little Cool Hand Luke. He was probably about 7 or 8, I think, when his father discovered e-NABLE, and they got a 3D printer and started 3D printing devices for Luke, and Luke was able to give feedback in a way that others hadn't. He was very honest and open, and would be very honest and say what the adults needed to fix, because up until that point, all of the designs were coming from the adults in the global community, and we hadn't really gotten any feedback from the end users. So when Luke started giving feedback, it was very eye-opening for the community, because they thought they were making these fantastic designs, which they were, but having an end user be able to say, this doesn't fit right, or I would really appreciate if you would do this differently, really helped to grow the designs and make them better. And in this slide, you can see Luke holding up his 6-fingered hand that he designed, because he had been born with no fingers. He finally got a prosthetic and decided that, well, I can make it however I want, so why would I only stop at 5 fingers? So he made himself a hand that had 6 fingers so that it could hold things much easier, which is something that us 10-fingered people tend to not have the ability to do. So he actually had an advantage by being limb different. And he also designed a claw hand, which was more like 3 fingers that would just grab stuff. And it was really cool to see him go from a recipient to a designer at such a young age. Luke also discovered that he actually preferred to have tools at the end of his hand rather than fingers for some things, because for the traditional devices that were being created by the community, they had fingers, and they had to bend their wrist to make the fingers curl around things. So when Luke decided it would be much easier if you had something that's strapped directly to your arm, and then you could just change things at the end of that to help you hold a soda can, or a card holder for playing cards, or maybe just have a Lego attachment so you can play with your toys much easier. So it was Luke who really pushed the community to start thinking outside of the box and think of other ways that we could be helping people by making tools and not just hands. This is Cam. He was about 4 or 5 when he got his first hand, which was created for him by a couple of middle school students in the USA, some young girls who got excited about the e-NABLE project and created a 3D printed hand for him. And he decided that he wanted to become a designer himself. So again, it was the end user and a child, a limb different child, who went from receiving the device to realizing that he had the ability to test things out and make things on his own with his mom's help. They have designed all kinds of interesting devices. He came up with a design for that you can see in the slide of something like Luke had, but a little different, where you can strap it to your arm and with elastics hold things instead of trying to wrap your 3D printed fingers around something. He came up with a design for attaching to the 3D printed prosthetic something to hold a pen. And he's just been continuing to surprise us with his design work at such a young age. And he didn't stop there. This slide shows him giving presentations at a young age and teaching other kids about 3D printing, 3D design. And so again, he went from a recipient to a maker to a designer, and now he's discovered a hidden talent for teaching at a young age. Because of these kids and their ability to give us feedback, we were able to have the community really start focusing on design tools for the limb different community, where instead of the hands, it was something like on this slide, we had Shay, who was one of the first kids to get a 3D printed hand. She really wanted to learn to play the violin. So the community started designing, and her maker from the very beginning was a man named Frankie Flood, who's a phenomenal designer. He created the first bow holder device for her, and from there shared those files, and then other people started making different versions based on his design and changing it based on what their end user needed. We have a lot of limb different children who love to ride their bikes and have a very hard time with balance because their arms are too short or they can't reach the handlebars. So because of the community, now there are dozens of different designs that can attach directly to the bicycles that limb different individuals can just put their arms or hands into to be able to steer their bicycles. Some of them have created full arms or wrist-driven hands for that. But in this slide, you can see a few different versions. We also have had adults who have different shaped hands, who have fingers still, but they aren't fully formed, or they are different somehow that will not work for the traditional e-NABLE device that was created for somebody who doesn't have fingers. So in this slide, I'm showing a specialty device that was created for an adult who really wanted to lift weights to build up the muscles in his arm. And so our community worked together and collaborated and came up with a design that would allow him to lift weights. We also have In this slide, I'm showing a jump rope holder that also was designed for just strapping directly to the arms so that nobody had to worry about a prosthetic hand. It turns out it can be used for golfing, sweeping, all kinds of things. About 2 or 3 years ago, after we had been focusing on 3D printed prosthetics for people who did not have fingers, I started thinking about all the people who still do have fingers and may have suffered from a stroke or have some kind of illness or nerve damage that doesn't allow them to use their fingers. So we put out a design challenge out into the open source community to ask them to come up with designs that would allow those who have their fingers but can't use them anymore to be able to do everyday activities again, like opening the lid on your yogurt or your butter, or using a credit card at the ATM, typing, zipping up your coat, opening doors. The interesting thing was that most of the designs that were created came from children under the age of 18. They were really excited about being able to use their ideas and imaginations to create something tangible and useful for that somebody else could use. From there, I realized that we had been missing out on helping the visually impaired. And so I wanted to see what the community could do to create tactile learning tools so that teachers in classrooms who had a visually impaired child could hand them something that they could feel in their hands to allow them to participate much easier in lessons where maybe the teacher might have been describing something or trying to talk about an animal or constellations that the visually impaired student wouldn't be able to see. So we had another design challenge and asked the community to come up with designs for all kinds of learning tools, from the shapes of the United States individual states to coding blocks to Braille tabs for the piano, to counting machines. All kinds of designs were created and shared, again, open source, free for anybody and any teachers to make and print out for their students, or for families who might want them for their children or themselves. We were able to work with a school for the blind in California, and in this slide you can see one of their students getting to play with a Rubik's Cube, which generally has been only useful for those who can see colors. And so one of the designs that came through in the contest was a Rubik's Cube that uses Braille for the colors that could be stuck to the original cube. So in this slide, you can see a visually impaired person playing with a Rubik's Cube that is full of color and able to see the color through the Braille on the little pads that are on it. It has been incredible to watch how the global community has gone from a few people to thousands of people, and they are trying to discover as many ways as possible to help others with 3D printing. So whether that is creating devices that they can use, tactile learning tools for the visually impaired. Recently, this past year in 2020, our makers have created thousands and thousands of personal protective equipment, PPE, for the global pandemic, from face shields and masks and ear savers, It's been incredible to watch. And what has been even more incredible is that the limb difference community are also designing and creating and sharing. And so we went from 2 people working together from 10,000 miles apart in 2011 and 2012 to thousands of people all over the world in over 100 countries. We have over 140 chapters of e-NABLE volunteers all over the world, and we estimate that we have delivered about 15,000 3D printed prosthetic hands to those in need. And it's just been incredible to see how not only are people helping for the greater good, but it's opening up doors for the differently abled to discover that they actually have talents for design or 3D printing, or maybe they don't have those talents, but because of their experience with e-NABLE and being part of a global community, they can at least share their ideas so that those who can design can take those ideas or their drawings and turn them into tangible objects that we can share for other people. So that is kind of e-NABLE in a nutshell, and that is my presentation. You can find our website at enablingthefuture.org. You can email me if you have any questions. We are on social media, on Twitter and Instagram under e-NABLE the Future. We have various Facebook groups that you can join. And you can just go to the website and click on Lend a Hand or Need a Hand, and our volunteers would be happy to help you. Muted again.
Sorry for I'm missing the mute button. So thank you for this amazing presentation. When I started making the prosthetics here in Brazil, it was not on that stage. I saw that you are keep evolving and making other types of prosthetic, not just the one with fingers, and that's really amazing. Here in Brazil, right now, we also have a wonderful story about a musician called João Carlos Martins. He's a very famous musician here in Brazil and around the world. He plays the piano, and some years ago, because of some diseases and some accidents, he lost the movements of his fingers, so he cannot play the piano anymore. And at the beginning of this year, a maker, he developed a specific prosthetic to him, so he was able to play the piano again. So everybody in Brazil was really amazed. So we really can see the impact of 3D printers in our day. And thank you very much for sharing with us your history.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and now I have some questions for you.
Okay.
I think we still have 10 minutes more before our cultural presentation, and I want to know if you think the 3D printers can also help students and the education environment in this new world of the pandemic. How the 3D printers can help the teachers, the students to evolve their journey of education?
Well, the pandemic has thrown us for a loop, but I think that if teachers are able to remind students that their ideas are powerful wherever they are, whether they're in their home or at school, sharing their ideas and giving the students design challenges that they can do from home, and something that that can help other people is a really big motivator. You know, there's something great about getting a perfect score on your test, or designing something and getting a ribbon at the fair. But when you design something, whether it's big or small, whether it's, you know, something that will stick to the end of a finger and help somebody type, that knowing that you have designed something that somebody else could be helped with is a huge motivator, not only to get these kids designing, but they realize that they need math and science, and they may not have known that they were interested in anything like that. The world needs more makers, it needs more scientists and engineers, and giving kids a problem to solve where the end result is they helped somebody, and that person can be, you know, 20,000 miles away. It's just a big inspirational boost to them. And so I think if teachers can even ask them, you know, you have a grandpa who had a stroke and he can't hold his spoon. How about you design something for grandpa that will help him eat with a spoon? And then, because 3D printing is digital, they can email their file to their teacher. Their teacher can 3D print it for them and send it back to them, and they can give it to their grandpa. And they can still do 3D printing from afar and still help people, whether it's in their own household, in their community, or globally. And by sharing that design, once they've made it, to somewhere like Thingiverse or the open source community, maybe there's somebody who just browses across it someday and absolutely needed it, and it made all the difference in the world. And I think if teachers really promote that in their classrooms, that just because you can't be near the 3D printer right now, there are ways that you can still help. You can design stuff and never actually 3D print it yourself and share it, and somebody who needs it can find a 3D printer or get their own 3D printer and make the thing that you designed, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, when we can see the result of our efforts here in a short period of time, it's amazing.
Yeah.
And also the machine of the 3D printer is a beautiful way to learn math, physicians, and also chemistry and biology also.
Right? Yes. Yeah, so, there's all different kinds of materials that can be made, and you have to learn how to do it, and different temperatures and measurements. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, here in Brasilia, we have a big space of our institute, our organization. So we sometimes receive children here, kids that they are in school, and when they see the result of the printer, they start to asking how it works, and it's not just one question. If they could, they could spend all the day here asking about this technology. It's amazing. And just another question. Here in Brazil, mainly on our city, we have still a big challenge to make a community of makers active, and a community that matters of making good things for impact the life of other people. It's really difficult to connect all of them here. we're still finding the best way to do this. So I want to know from you, what was your biggest challenge in maintaining that community of makers, making prosthetics active and interacting with each other?
I think when John Schull created the Google Plus group for us, that was what really boosted us forward, because previously we had shared the files out into the universe, and there were little groups of makers or individual makers, but there was no place for everybody to gather online and talk and share. Google Plus doesn't exist anymore, but you have, you can make we ended up making a hub on the e-NABLE website, and forums and Facebook groups where people from all over the world can join, and they can have real-time conversations. I think, especially with the pandemic, you need a space where everybody can join in, and somebody can ask a question, and within 5 minutes you have 20 different answers or ideas, or somebody in a normal conversation, you have somebody who suggests one thing, and that sparks an idea in the next person, and they share, and then from there you've got this ladder of great ideas, and then at the very bottom you've got this solution, and it only took 10 minutes versus searching on Google, trying different prototypes. Sometimes my biggest joy is that the e-NABLE community is not all just engineers. It's not all scientists or prosthetists. It's random people from different backgrounds who just were curious or had ideas that they wanted to share. I mean, we've got people who have never even 3D printed anything sharing ideas because they've got the ideas, but they don't know how to make them happen. Collaborating with the people who do know how to make it happen. And then we've got the recipients who will 3D print out whatever they made, try it, give feedback, and start that cycle all over again. And until you have a specific meeting spot, much like a makerspace in real life, where you can invite people to join and participate, you aren't going to be able to really grow because people don't know where to go. So with the e-NABLE website, I wanted specifically to start that because nobody knew about the Google Plus group and all the cool stuff that was happening there until I started the website and said, hey, here's the stories that are coming out of this group. You should join us. Here's a link to the private place, because we didn't want to share the recipient information publicly. We wanted it to be private, and we wanted it to be somewhere where just the people who were actually interested in helping participated, and not just people who wanted to look and throw in their 2 cents. And one thing that has really been mind-blowing for me is that in all of the years that we've had e-NABLE in this community space, there has only been maybe 2 or 3 times where we had trolls. And the rest of the time, it's people who are genuinely excited about being there and want to help. And it's not people who are just coming in and leaving negative comments. It's really, I think that if you really want to build a strong community, you create a space, and then you also reach out to the youth, because the youth don't know what's impossible yet. They don't know that if they design it this way, it's not going to work. So they're going to try it. They're going to try designing it and learn from their failures. And I don't think anything is a failure. It's a learning experience. You learn from what didn't work so that you can make it work. And I think getting the youth, even clear down to age 5 and maybe younger, involved in learning how to collaborate is what is going to build the community. Because most of our community now are students. They're elementary, middle, and high school and university students who have been inspired and found a sense of community where they can share their ideas and not feel worried about somebody making fun of them for it.
Wow, those amazing tips. Thank you very much, Jen. I think we are on time. I don't know if you know, but you are the person responsible for what we're making here today.
Oh.
The prosthetic was our entry point in the world of the connecting the maker movement to assistive technology and to helping people. And our organization was founded 4 years ago. I started to make the prosthetic like 5 years ago. So I need only one prosthetic to make this big change in my life.
Yes.
So when you see the result, everything changes inside you, inside your mind, inside your heart, inside your soul. And I think it was the time that I really found a purpose of what I was doing to my life, my knowledge, my experience. So I quit the startup world, community, thinking only in investments and venture capitalists. And today I'm much more happy than I was before. So thank you for this project. Thank you for being an inspiration for all over the world. I'm here in Brazil. I'm really far away from you. So I don't know if you know that real impact that you make around the world. So thank you very much, Jen. It was amazing. And this video will be available after the live on YouTube and the Facebook.
Okay.
So the people who enter late or who didn't see the video can see later. So thank you again, Jen, very much.
Thank you so much.
We'll see probably someday.
Yes. Plan on it.
Yes. Thank you, Jen, very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Pessoal, fiquei emocionado aqui. De verdade, assim, eu acho que o projeto da Jen foi um projeto que realmente transformou o mundo do movimento maker, do movimento faça você mesmo, no sentido de atuar com um pouco mais de propósito, soluções que realmente façam diferença e tragam impacto para a vida das pessoas. A gente começou fazendo prótese lá atrás e isso abriu a nossa cabeça para outros tipos de soluções, né, que esse mundo da tecnologia maker, da impressão 3D, corte a laser, marcenaria, também dali podiam sair outras soluções para pessoas com deficiência, com outros tipos de deficiência, né, não só pessoas amputadas. E eu acho que foi esse despertar que fez nascer o devido, que trouxe um pouco mais de propósito para a minha vida, para a vida dos meus parceiros aqui de organização, para o pessoal que trabalha com a gente também. Então, eu realmente sou muito grato pela Jen. Essas aqui foram as primeiras próteses que a gente fez. Elas são próteses quase toda feita com impressora 3D, né? A gente tem alguns elementos também aqui, também são elementos de baixo custo, parafuso, pedaço de couro, pode ser corino aqui, a pontinha dos dedos de silicone também, para facilitar o segurar das coisas, né? Essa pontinha de silicone, inclusive, foi uma contribuição nossa para o projeto das próteses, né? Ela é feita de silicone, mas o molde dela foi feito em impressora 3D, e a partir aí do molde, a gente consegue fazer injeção de silicone e gerar essas pontinhas que encaixam no dedo e que dão mais aderência no segurar das coisas, né? Então, assim, é muito legal mesmo. Realmente, eu estava ansioso e esperando que acontecesse logo. essa palestra. E conheci a Jen também, porque eu ainda não conhecia ela virtualmente, né? Pessoalmente está difícil de conhecer qualquer pessoa ultimamente, né? Eu estou enrolando um pouquinho também, blá blá blázinho aqui para vocês, mas aproveitando para contar um pouquinho da nossa história aqui do Me Viro. Enquanto a gente ativa a audiodescrição para o próximo evento que a gente vai ter agora há pouco. Então aguardem aí, não saiam daí. A gente vai ter um workshop de